everyone, and welcome to the Monaco Streaming Film Festival's ongoing masterclass series. We're going to be talking today about fast and modern distribution, and we're joined by Alex Wellen, who is the CEO and president of MOTORTREND Group Worldwide. Alex, hello.
Gavin, nice to see you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I am your host, Gavin Bridge. Today we're going to be talking fresh out of MIP TV, and where fast was one of the biggest conversations again across worldwide buyers and distributors of content. So, Alex, tell us first of all, before we get too much into it, just setting the stage there. Tell us a little bit about what MOTORTREND is and what you do.
MOTORTREND started 75 years ago as a magazine, which many people are aware of. Many people have bought cars because we identified going back then to the car of the year. But actually, we're a global multimedia platform that reaches over 200 million people every year. So we have a fully distributed TV network, which many people watch. We have a studio. We have events that we do throughout the year. We have large digital properties, direct to consumer. And then, of course, FAST, or the free ad-supported streaming service. So we have a lot of things that truly make us what they call a 360-degree brand. We work with people everywhere.
The one thing that connects everybody that's out there is the love for a car. It gives us a purpose, It puts us in a space where we can always build and get better.
For generations, cars have taken us beyond our wildest dreams. They invoke a burning passion.
These things that are supposed to be designed to take you from point A to point B can just be for total joyriding.
That drives a thriving culture. And for over 70 years, MOTORTREND has shared that culture with the world. But now, MOTORTREND is an entire universe.
It's pretty cool.
We are the largest automotive media company in the world.
Awesome.
From streaming entertainment.
Now that's how you drive!
To coverage of industry trends.
MOTORTREND car, SUV, and truck of the year. Best driver's car is...
And global events. We connect consumers to the brands they love.
Right now we're inside Porsche.
Because we understand that passion, that relentless love of cars, like no one else can. Join us for the joyride. MOTORTREND.
Well, I can buff that out, okay? I can still win this, so we'll carry on.
So amazing. So literally, maybe not unique, but one of a few companies I think who probably has content in all formats, right? So you've got print, TV, digital, web, everywhere.
It was definitely what attracted me to the role 5 years ago, and why I'm so lucky to work with this team. I mean, there are very few media organizations where you can really look at content end to end. So a big part of it is the entertainment side, and we can actually window our content from SVOD and linear to AVOD to FAST to whatever we choose. And then on top of that, we really help people think about the cars that they want to buy, new and used. And so we can use our digital properties, we can get them together for an event. So in that way, we feel special, the 350 of us here, that we get to work every day on something that touches all ways of life. And we're really a voice for not only modern media, and mobility, but also car culture.
So you have different versions of pay TV, right? You have a cable network, you have an SVOD service. You recently launched Fast in October 2022.
Yep. Yeah.
What led you to deciding to go from paid models to a free ad-supported model?
So you're right. We have made content available mostly through a subscription basis, right? So if you pay for television or you get our direct-to-consumer product, which is MOTORTREND Plus, you can get access ad-free to 8,000 episodes, the largest library in the world for automotive. And if you love automotive, that's what you need to subscribe to. And we've seen millions of people subscribe just on digital. And then we have tens of millions of people watch on TV. But some of the roots of MotorTrend come from YouTube. And YouTube was an ad-supported free service. And when we moved everything behind the paywall, there was definitely a response by our fans of, hey, we understand it's expensive to make this, but why does everything have to be behind the paywall? And so what we've done over time is make the decision that there's a certain segment or cohort of people who will definitely always want to pay for everything ad-free. But FAST affords us an opportunity to do something really special for the hundreds of millions of fans that are out there who love our content, who know our shows. And for us, it's what you would call, Professor Bridge, the upper and middle funnel, right? If we get them to the lower funnel where they pay us, great. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be happy with the upper and middle funnel where we can monetize them through ads and we can delight them with the content. And that's really what was our thinking as we expanded the FAST. The last thing I'll say, Gavin, which I think is worth mentioning, is we were uniquely well positioned to win in this category. It's still early innings, but we know how to program a linear network. We've done it for many years. So now lighting up a digital version of that, perhaps, and we'll talk about it, many digital offerings like that is really natural for us, right? We have those skill sets and we know that people love very specific things about cars. And so FAST affords us an opportunity to really appeal to many, many different audiences with an ad-supported model. So this is like a breakthrough, as you can tell from me. Like it's the, what is it? I was saying, FAST is the new black. Like it is the ultimate way to get our content out to hundreds of millions of people that have been clamoring for these stories.
It is. It's very interesting because it's definitely the new distribution model, right? To engage people like linear. I always find it ironic that, when cord cutting started, everyone's like, oh, everyone hates linear, linear's dead. And it's like, actually, no, linear, I think it was just the old model of linear. Too many ads, perhaps some of this, too many repeats. It almost felt like people were taking it for granted. Whereas I think to what you're saying as well, yes, how to program a channel for your group. You're able to apply that because there's also, I can't remember how many, 16 other automotive channels in the US on FAST, but not, to your point, most, if not all of them, don't have the background that you have of knowing how to reach an audience. So is that a unique selling point that you see reflected in the performance so far?
I think we have been surprised versus all the financial models that we put together as to what the results are. We've been out there for about 4 months, maybe 5 fully. I know you mentioned October, but we really weren't in the marketplace till middle of November. We're on about 5 or 6 platforms. We have 5 or 6 platforms coming. We'll talk about what we do in our own properties. But for those properties, we have seen the number of people interested in this content be 3 or 4x of what we expected. But we've seen the engagement be half to a third of what we expected them to consume. So we looked at our TV models, we looked at our direct-to-consumer models, and they were extremely high consumption, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a month. This is more in the 2, 3, 4 hours, but it's so many more people than we expected. And actually the ECPMs, right, the effective costs per 1,000 ads that are served are turning out to be higher than we even projected as well, too. So we're actually meeting and exceeding our budgets in that regard, too. And there really is no other category or brand like MotorTrend. And yet, we're rooting for the other channels as well, too, because all boats rise. And now I think you're seeing others launch automotive channels or try to group and bundle automotive because it's such a passion category. And we know that once they find us, they'll stay with us.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic news for your performance. You make me think, because it's something that when we've met before, we've discussed this, but do you think the lack of on-demand, like having free on-demand AVOD content, is that helping to make people, if they want to watch, they have to watch the FAST, in other words? So do you think that's part of the reason why you've done so well?
I think I would be foolish to pretend that I know where it's all going. We have a hypothesis, and I think it's a little different than we've seen with others. I think there are those who want to be everywhere and available in any format, whether it's ad supported or not ad supported. For us, we've been very, very meticulous and rigorous about what we can market, what we can describe, where people can find it, and what we want them to do, to the extent we can control that. And so what we've done in the past, as you know, is everything's been behind the paywall for the most part. We obviously have free ad-supported websites that help people look at short form, but for long form programming, for the 8,000 episodes that we have available, for the programs that people love, like Roadkill, Top Gear America, and on goes the list, Super Turbo Storytime, which is an animated show, which we could talk about. For those shows, we've made the decision that they can be ad-supported as a new line of business. But we want to start with fast, right? We want to be clear to everyone, if you want to watch us, you're going to have to watch it on our schedule with our ad breaks for our programming. And you're going to get tons more than you ever had before, but this is not going to be something totally on demand. If you want to watch everything, if you want it ad-free, you can pay $5 a month or go on to Amazon or Roku, where we have channels as well too. So while we have an SVOD service, at least in my mind, for the most part, I think we're going to want to wait on AVOD because we want to upsell people to the extent that they want control into a longer term relationship that is ad free. Eventually, we may find, you know what, SVOD is a very small segment, AVOD is a great way to go, and we'll have fast. But for the time being, and we could talk about some of the numbers, we're not seeing any cannibalization by doing it this way between TV and not that fast. Fast is growing at 50%, month over month, month in November versus March. So it's about four months. We've grown 50%. We're approaching or in the vicinity of 2 million hours of consumption. But we are not seeing linear go down, or SVOD for that matter. SVOD continues with limited marketing to be up or flat, and linear is up. Linear, we had our biggest quarter ever on TV in Q4, and Q1's shaping up to be a very strong quarter as well, too, especially in a time when people are cutting the cord. So long way of saying things may change, but for the most part, if you're going to get into the ad-supported side of the business, it makes sense to at least be methodical and say, okay, let's see how fast does first.
Well, I think that's a very key point you make, because I've only heard one other person a year ago from AMC tell me about how there wasn't much duplication between a fast viewer and their network viewers. And it is still a fear, among some companies, that if you do this, you're taking away for viewers from somewhere else. So the fact that you're seeing, actual strong TV legacy numbers as well as growth in fast suggests that perhaps people are just trying to engage maybe in rooms where they don't have a cable box or on a device where they're not at home and they can still access your content.
Just on that point, it just makes me think, just to make sure your listeners and viewers don't think we have this all figured out and we're so smart. I do think that my experience with disruption, and I've spent my whole career in this space, is that disruption is kind of funny like that. It disrupts you when you least expect it. And so many of the existing models that you need to disrupt will fall off very suddenly. And so you could see a place, and we may be in the middle of it now, where TV falls off so significantly, so fast, that you need to have a second act. And so I think what we're doing now is at least we're taking advantage of this opportunity. I think we're ahead of most, but still behind others. But I think for the most part, we've demonstrated that by being a first mover, by growing this part of the business, we're creating those two horses, right? And that linear horse, when can we hop or at least ride both of those horses of linear and fast? And so I think it's a good time for people to think about, okay, what's my second act if in fact one part of my business ends up falling off a cliff? Because that's what happens with disruption. It's like it's steady, and then it drops.
Well, that's let's talk a bit about your content, and then I want to talk about distribution as well, because one sort of leads to the other. But content-wise, it's not just old shows that you have, right? Like I know that tends to be the premise that most people assume are fast, unless you're like local or live news or sports. But you have you've had shows that came out in quarter one that were on TV that you quickly also put onto Fast, correct?
In very rare cases, we will do that. I mean, I think that you should be aware, or your listeners and viewers should be aware, that we create hundreds of hours of original programming every year. We spend tens and tens of millions of dollars on programming. And I would submit we do the highest, most premium storytelling around automotive collectively, across everything from drag racing to restorations to low buck builds and on, do it yourself, comedy. And so I think that, it is really a question of, okay, well, we're in all these different areas and all this different content. We need to create it once and monetize it multiple times and distribute it multiple times. So in some cases, we'll wait 6 months to a year. In other cases, we'll wait 3 months or 4 months. But the point is that the people who are paying money should get it first. The people on TV, the people on SVOD, absolutely should get it first. And for those premium programs, eventually we may create original programming only for Fast. But for the time being, we have more content that has not been available to so many people that we can now make available. That the first things first is make sure linear, we honor the relationship with those customers as well as SVOD, and then window it in some sort of a methodical, thoughtful way to your ad-supported side of things too. If you really want to see it first, if you really want to see it on a big screen, if you want to see it without ads, then you should get what you paid for.
And also, I think what you were saying, kind of adding to that, because you delay the airing of the few originals that are kind of coming in quick. If you haven't caught them on TV and you have TV, it might actually make you kind of go back, check out the VOD, or go on, the app to sort of to watch it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Super Turbo Storytime, which is our first adult animated program, which brings stars together from all over the automotive industry to tell stories and us animate them, because those stories are apocryphal. They're stories that you've heard for a long time and there's no footage. So seeing as they're only about 80 to 82% accurate, and embellished by our storytellers, we have animation. That's a program that took 1.5 years to produce. We did it with Titmouse, one of the most famous animating studios out there in LA. And it's a good digital show. It's demonstrated that on SVOD, it's really delivered. On linear, it didn't resonate the same way because it was that audience wants more restoration. However, on TV, it still reached 1.5 million people. So that medium gets it out there. On direct-to-consumer, they can watch them all without ads. And now, we couldn't think of a bigger marketing opportunity than to put a few of those episodes once we're outside the window. So I think it's at the end of April, beginning of May, to put that show, or at least a number of the episodes, on Fast. And to your point, as soon as they watch it, if they love it, they'll go to the app. And if they want to binge it for a month, they can do that. But I'm hoping that they'll come there, they'll pay their $5 if that's what they really want. They'll binge it, and they'll see so many other things that they didn't know about that they'll let it ride. But you know what? It's perfectly fine if they never want to pay us. It's perfectly fine if they want to watch us in a TV or a streaming environment. I think it's silly to say, okay, this is our business model and this is what we want customers to do every time. I think we have to go to where the customers are. It's easy to say that, but I think we actually have to do that. We have to be there where they are, and it has to be good business. But I think that has to be the leading indicator. Where is the customer, and how can we do something for the business that puts the customer first still?
It's an interesting and modern approach, because you're only seeing some companies still kind of not necessarily getting into it the way that you have. So it's nice to hear, especially as someone, like you call me the professor, who's pretty big into Fast. How many channels do you have at the moment?
Always answer this question carefully. We have theoretically one channel, but it's distributed on, I think, 6 properties now. So everything from Amazon's Freevee to Samsung to our owned and operated platform, meaning you can go to our website right now at MOTORTREND.com and click the free button, or you can come to our app, which is the MOTORTREND Plus app, and download it and watch for free without paying a thing, not even registering. But we hope that you'll love it. So we have the one channel that's distributed on those 5 or 6 platforms. We're in at least 5 continents. Are there more than 5 continents? Yes. So we're in 5 of them. We're not in Antarctica, but we are on all these different places. And then we are going to be lighting up, and you have it first, you can run with this, but we're going to be lighting up new channels, and we'll do that first on our owned and operated platforms. Because one, and you can ask me more questions, we want our owned and operated, our websites, our apps, to have a unique value proposition, because we can create the environment that they may like, we can customize it, we can personalize it, we can deliver them a lot of value. And two is we want to see if people watch it. Honestly, if we create a channel all around one program, or all around lowriders, or all around tuners in Super Street, we want to see if it resonates so that we can go to distributors and say, hey, you'd be crazy not to light up this channel as well. So
yeah, you have a good test market. But on the question actually about your SVOD, distribution, how is viewership of your channel? By that I mean, like, are you seeing subscribers? Are they spending time watching it within the? I mean, I'm assuming so if you're going to be putting more channels there. But what have you seen in terms of engagement from subscribers?
I'd have to look at that. I don't get the impression that our subscribers, honestly, are watching the fast channels much on our owned and operated platforms, because they have everything that they want, for the most part, available to them on demand. However, funny thing is that people do like a lean back experience, and we haven't launched yet, but we will launch this quarter on connected TV devices. So with our owned and operated. So just for everyone who's out there, just to clarify, if you download the MOTORTREND app on Amazon or Roku or Apple, you download it, you can, like a TV experience, watch our fast channel. And that's really where the lean back experiences happen, more than I think desktop and mobile. And that might very well be our subscribers as well too. They may say, hey, I love things on demand, but you know what? I don't get this TV network, and I kind of like the TV network and not have to think about it. So give me your best shot. But for now, the best way for us to monetize on our own properties that fast channel is with people who aren't subscribers, who are for the very first time finally getting access to the content that they love.
I think you may see when you were mentioning like doing some single IP channels exclusively within the app, you might see a good uptick there, just based on the different places I've been to recently, different conferences. In Australia, they were saying that single IP is basically the strongest driver of viewership for their channels over there. And common consensus on some of the panels at MIP TV was how important they are as part of the way to sort of add validation and to grow viewership. So even if you have viewers, I would imagine, who aren't perhaps not watching yet, when they see a channel based around a show they like, there sometimes is such a powerful draw. And I guess it's the one of the benefits of fast, right? Because it's digital. You have a digital setup. It's not like you're not having to go out there and start a new cable channel, right, and incur all those costs. It's a much more friendly, cost-efficient way of creating additional ways of showing your content.
Yeah, why do you think that is? I mean, because it has a built-in audience, because it's easier to market. I mean, I think there are some real values to saying, here is the Roadkill, or here's the Bitch and Rides, or here's the Iron Resurrection channel, which are some of our biggest shows.
I think it's partly nostalgia, or like, the familiar. So if you think of like that paradox of choice paralysis or decision paralysis, because there's so much to watch these days, seeing a channel geared around a show that you like sometimes is a great relief. I've seen various stats in the last couple of weeks where one study said people take up to 10 minutes to try to figure out what they want to watch. Another study in another country said they'd take between 6 to 7 minutes trying to figure out what they want to watch. So, I mean, perhaps it's somewhere in between the two, and it may vary by country because of the number of choices. But if you think that's what's happening for on demand, then yeah, having content that you like just easily put in front of you, you can see why people will gravitate toward it.
Yeah, I think, I was going to say this before, but it was based on something else you said earlier in the conversation. Innovation always looks a little different than you think it's going to, right? You think a concept is going to kind of blow you out of the water and be a flying car. Turns out to be an electric car or something underneath the surface, right? The way Musk looked at it, for example. And I think that you would say, some people will say, I don't know what the fuss is about fast. I don't really get it. It's just linear TV. Like, I don't like, why is Gavin constantly writing about linear TV again? And the reality is that it's only a few degrees off from linear TV, but it has a profound trajectory that's different by being a few degrees off, kind of like an asteroid, right? That's only off by a few millimeters. And so I think that simply having the personalization, simply having the cost structure to be less, simply creating content in a way that people want to watch it. For example, why would someone, a subscriber who has access to all of Roadkill's show or all of Top Gear America's show, why would they want to watch a fast channel, for example? And the answer is because they don't want to think about it, because we are programmers. We know that some of our shows are stronger than others. Why on earth wouldn't we, assuming it's not a serial show where you have to go, from one to the next to understand it? Our shows are evergreen. They stand alone. We can pick the best 10 shows. And that analysis paralysis, that's what, on average, 17 minutes, something ridiculous when you only have a half hour to watch TV. If we can eliminate that, and it can be mindless, and you're like, I love MOTORTREND, I love the car shows, I trust them, I love that I can watch any one I want, but I have no idea what to watch out of these 100 episodes. You know what? I'm going to let it ride, and I'm going to let it learn me from a privacy point of view where I'm comfortable, and as a result, it'll help me get closer and faster to the things that matter to you. So I think that's what's interesting about innovation for me, is it always looks a little different than you think it's going to look. It's only slightly a few pixels off, but it has a really big impact.
It's very true, because if you think, if you went back 5 years ago and you said, what's the hottest topics at all the industry events going to be? And you were like, oh yeah, like that streaming linear stuff, they'd be like, you're crazy. That's never going to grow. And, the next one will be just the same. No one will be able to predict really where it comes from.
TikTok, look at TikTok. TikTok is linear TV. It's channel surfing the whole time. It's reduced it down to 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. It's the remote is different than in your hand with your thumb. It's still a D-pad, right? The down, up, left, right. So it's a similar idea, but it's on a flat surface. It's in certain ways, the capability of going through an endless number of channels. You subscribe to things. I mean, TikTok is TV, and yet people look at TikTok as, and it is, by the way, like a miracle, right? And same with Reels, right? And the same with YouTube Shorts and all those. But again, those didn't break the internet. Those weren't like such transformative ideas on paper, but in implementation, they tapped into the time, the behavior, the people, their attention span, the creators. And so I think it's important for us to keep challenging ourselves, to not think we know too much, and not look at these things and be like, I'm dismissing that, or that's the same thing. I think we have to be on these platforms. We have to be trying these things if you can afford to. And we have to have a longer view of it. And hopefully some of the other lines of business like TV and SVOD and print, which are more in decline, will still help pay the bills while you get to that second horse that you jump to. And there will always be a group of people who love print. There'll always be a group of people who love television. And so the question is just, what is the timing around all that? And will you be, like my son surfs, where will you be on that wave, right? Crushed by it, or at the very tip and riding it out. And that's what we do here. And by being a smaller company, but being a massive iconic brand, we could be pretty agile, and we create a culture here where people can try stuff and actually fail.
Yeah, so you can pivot and experiment, which is, the core of Fast really is about that, right? Like you mentioned earlier, testing some of these channels out to see if they work or not. That is essentially what we would call like a pop-up channel, right? Which you never got pop-up TV networks before. You had to be sure, or you had a very expensive failure.
Totally.
And and TV's littered with those, right? You think in the last 10, 15 years, there's been many networks that launched and just kind of created a way.
I worked at some of those, and I think it is about, in business, the barrier to entry. What's the barrier to entry? What are the substitutes, right? They call these like the 5 forces in business that affect you, and substitutes and the barriers to entry to get into a business were so different. Now there are a lot of substitutes. Now the barrier to entry is extremely low, and the people that usually win out are the customers in that.
Can we talk a little bit about advertising? Because one thing that I've heard a lot of is that people don't really know, there's not enough talk about advertising in Fast. So I don't need to know too many specifics, but just, have you been pleasantly surprised, upset with how advertising gone? How's the revenue generation from Fast gone?
Yeah, I almost answered your question, then you added Fast at the end, which is, of course, what this conversation's about. I mean, because advertising doesn't look the same on linear as it does on Fast, as it does on direct, well, no direct consumer, we don't have ads, but on our owned and operated websites and so forth too. So you've caught me fresh off the first quarter, and I really have a good perspective on kind of where our business is. And for Fast, it's bucked the trend so far. We put our models together. We had not launched Fast. We never expected Fast to be millions of hours in a month, only 4 months in. And the CPMs, again, what advertisers will pay us for every 1,000 impressions is significantly double-digit higher than we put in our model. I don't know that will last. I think also it's early days, and we have more inventory than ever because we had 0. But it will be interesting. Will there be a tipping point when we're at 10 million hours, which I hope we are in the next few months? Will the inventory be there? Will it be? Will it be direct sold, or will it be an ad network programmatic? I think that's another reason we didn't talk about it, why it's so important to me for us to be on our owned and operated platforms. We've already put the infrastructure in place. We've already built out the channel. We can build out multiple channels, and I don't have to share the revenue with anyone, right? We can go all booked to our revenue lines, and the costs are pretty nominal in comparison to what I already spend to get it onto Amazon, what I spend to get it on Samsung. Why wouldn't we put it on our platform once we've built the infrastructure to actually stream it? And so then we can sell the advertising instead of, and it varies, 40%, 50%, 60% share, whatever the share is with our third party, we could actually get 90, 95%, 100% after you take out some of the distribution costs. So there's a lot of value in us getting those higher CPMs and collecting a higher rev share, or all of it, essentially, on our owned and operated platforms. But I think, again, it will really come down to when you're at 10, 20 million hours, 30 million hours of people watching this content, when TV's lower, when SVOD is even more saturated, will there be enough ads out there, whether it's displaced from those platforms to this platform or the marketplace in general? We have advertisers that are not just automotive, right? We have endemics, which are people endemic to automotive, or near endemics who do things for cars like tires and oil. And then we have plenty of other categories, major categories that advertise because they love cars. These are people who love, spending money in a certain lifestyle and doing things. So, I think there's still a lot of growth. We're in the growth mode, but I think you and I should talk again in a year or shorter. And say, is it at a point where our sellout rates are kind of have hit the ceiling? But we haven't seen anything like that yet.
Well, I know we're getting close to our allotted time. So anything you would like to bring up or quickly note?
I think you've done a great job of kind of covering all the different ways we've been trying to be really progressive in this space. And I hope your audience feels like we've been really honest about what's working and what's not working and how we're learning along the way, because there's still so many unknowns. I think the only thing I would add is, for us, not only does it mean reaching more people who were never willing to pay, who might connect with these programs in meaningful ways, create personalized channels, do O&O, get better CPMs and all of that. One of the things that excites me the most is the international expansion. With Plex, that moved us from 1 to 5 continents. I get emails all the time saying, why aren't you here? I want to watch your shows. How do I get your shows? How can we see it? So for me, the idea, yes, we can make money, but the idea that in Australia and New Zealand, for example, where I know for a fact that they're dying for our content, and it's only distributed in limited amounts to limited channels there. And now we can make so much more available. To me, that's really exciting. I think we're always inclined as Americans to think very inward. We have this expression, which you may be aware of, like there's the US and then there's ROS, the rest, ROW, the rest of world.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty egocentric perspective. And I think that one of the biggest ways to grow is internationally. And this kind of content is a currency that works everywhere in the world, right? And many times we leave a lot of room to breathe in these stories, meaning that it's all about the wrenching, it's all about the restorations. And sometimes we'll subtitle it, sometimes we'll dub it. But in most cases, this stuff translates especially in New Zealand and Australia, where we're all speaking the same language. But I'm really excited, long story short, a long story longer, in the international footprint and our brand continuing to be an iconic global brand.
Well, you are lucky in the sense that it's definitely content that can travel, right? It's not like you're taking a cop drama that may not work in other countries or other content like cooking, because there's different measurements used even, and that can sometimes be a real barrier to pick up. You have a very good proposition for content. So happy to hear that it's already doing well overseas.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I think we're basically at time, but that was a fantastic analysis and overview of everything. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm very happy to hear that everything's working well. It's a good poster child for, if you haven't got into fast yet, why you should. And I look forward to catching up with you later about this.
Same. Thanks for the interest and the deeper questions on the business, because it's always fun to think about these things.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Alex.